guys, it's Chrissy, and today is part 1 of my holiday writing series, and this one is inspired by A Christmas Carol. In case you're not familiar, A Christmas Carol is a story written by Charles Dickens that has been reimagined into several movies over the last few decades. It follows Ebenezer Scrooge, who believes that money is the most important thing, and trivial family holidays like Christmas are no excuse to stop working and make more of it. His coldness and refusal to participate with his family go much deeper than Christmas, and he lives a lonely life as a result. One night, he is visited by 3 different ghosts, or spirits, past, present, and future. These spirits show him the truths he has been avoiding, that he will die alone and unloved unless something changes. The good news is that this night definitely does change him, and Scrooge's character has a major overhaul as he now understands the importance of family and friends. So using these spirits of past, present, and future, I wanted to use this to drive today's topic about writing tense. And I wanted to talk specifically about the pros and cons of each tense. So the first one I wanted to talk about is past tense. Now this is the more traditional tense that's used, and it would be he walked or I said. Everything is told in the past. And this is referred to as the invisible tense because readers tend to not even notice it. And that can be a really good thing because if a reader's not distracted by your writing tense, they can focus more on the story. One of the pros of this tense is that it's pretty versatile. You can use first person point of view or third person point of view, both very easily. And with this tense, you're not as chained to the narrator in a play-by-play of what's happening. You're a little further removed from the point of view, and you can use foreshadowing and this sense of knowing what's about to happen that you can't really do in present tense. And you can say things like, if I had only known then what was about to happen. And if your point of view is from third person or third person omniscient, you have more freedom to hop around between different characters and tell their stories as well. But the drawback to this is that the reader can feel a little bit removed from everything. They're not as engaged and actively involved. And because this tense is in the past, the reader's not really involved in the decision-making process. And you also have to be more aware of showing rather than telling, since it is told in the past, because you're basically telling what already happened to the reader. Okay, so now I want to move on to present tense. And I may sound a little bit biased in this video because that's the tense that I write in. It's the one that I prefer. And I think for every writer, there's going to be a tense that just flows more naturally with you. So you definitely have to weigh that. You have to ask yourself, what is it that's easier for me to write? But then it's also helpful to consider some of these other things and ask yourself if it's right for the story that you're writing, if you're using the right tense for that particular story. So of course, present tense is everything's happening right now. It's happening as you're reading it. So it's definitely a different style, and I feel like this style has emerged and become more popular recently than it used to be in the past. It used to be a little bit foreign and weird, but now I want to say maybe not most of my books, a lot of the books that I own are written in present tense, and I know a lot of people feel that this is more prevalent in young adult fiction, but I've actually read quite a bit of women's fiction where they use present tense. So I definitely feel like this is a style that is becoming more and more popular. So I'm going to be focusing primarily on first person present tense since I feel that that point of view and this writing tense go hand in hand. Most of the time when you're using present tense, you're going to be using a first person point of view. So this tense definitely feels like an insider's perspective. The benefit of this tense is that you can really help the reader feel what the character is feeling. Since you're writing in a real-time narrative, you can really help the reader feel everything that the character is going through, and you can also bring them into their decision-making process. So it really gets the reader invested in what's going on and in your character. So if, for example, you have an unlikable main character, this can really help you see the other side of that character. It can help you see where they're coming from and maybe make them a little bit more relatable. And another pro of this tense is that you can surprise the reader a lot easier because they only get to see what's happening right now in the real time. So it's easier to surprise them with something that they may not see coming. But one of the drawbacks of this tense is that it can be quite limiting, especially since present tense is so connected with first person. The drawback is that when you're chained to a single character, it's really hard to explore what's happening with other characters. That character has to be in every single scene. So maybe you're trying to explore a subplot with these other characters. It's really hard to do unless you have multiple narrators. And the other thing, this could be a pro or a con, but the other thing that you have to be aware of with this point of view and tense combination is that you're telling that character's story, not necessarily the whole story. And so that's something to be aware of when you're writing the present tense, is that it is a limited view of the story, and which can be a really good thing if it's a character driven story and you really want to focus on what's going on inside the character's mind. But let's say that you're writing something that has a lot of action, you might want a wider scope, and so you might want to use present tense in that scenario. So it really just depends. You have to look at your particular story. It's not that one tense is better than the other, but it might be that one tense is better than the other for your individual story. Oh, and then one other drawback I wanted to talk about with present tense, and this is directly from my experience, that when you're writing in present tense, it can be really hard to navigate around some of the mundane events that take place in your character's life. So I've talked before about transition scenes. This is especially difficult when you're writing present tense because it's kind of, you can't really fast forward through those things when it's present tense. You have to have strategies to cut a scene and then jump into the next scene and do it skillfully so that, you know, the reader doesn't feel disoriented or anything. So those were all of the pros and cons with present and past tense. If I missed any, definitely let me know down below. Hopefully this video was helpful to you if you are currently debating which tense to use. And maybe gave you some insight if you only ever write in one tense. Maybe it gave you some insight into the other tense to look into. Oh, and stay tuned for part 2 of my holiday writing series where I use another holiday film to inspire a writing topic. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.